Welcome to the Gilchrist Experience. Again, we have Victor Pate, our second chance president from NAN, and we're talking about incarceration, solitary confinement. We're all familiar with the Khalif Browder case, which we'll see his mother a little later on. But today we have a gentleman who spent 30 years in prison, Anthony Smalls.
Yes. And
he's going to give us a little idea of what it takes to come out here in the Trump era. And because he was released, 6 days before the inauguration. Tell us about the transformation and what it was like before you went in, and how is it now?
Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you first for having me, and I appreciate being here. It's a great opportunity to tell my story. Hopefully I can touch some lives and help some young people make better decisions. Before I went in, I was a young man. I was 20 years old with no sense of direction. I was living in Far Rockaway, Queens, in a project called Edgemere, and it's pretty. He said, so you know it's pretty bad out there.
Did some work out there.
Yeah, and I did too. Unfortunately, not as good as the work you were doing trying to clean the streets up. I was messing them up. So I was in the '80s. I was robbing drug dealers.
Oh, that's the time. That's the time.
I was robbing drug dealers in the '80s, and unfortunately, in a botched robbery, someone was killed in the commission of a crime. Unfortunately, and I wound up also, before that incident, I wound up shooting someone and assault. I got convicted for assault, 6 to 18 years. I had 25 to life, and the judge decided that he couldn't do the court justice, and he said the only way he could do the court justice was to give me the death penalty, but he wasn't able to.
Whoa.
Yeah. Judge John Leahy, Supreme Court, J1 was the court that I was in, a pure homicide part, and he was a pretty, you know, he was a person that really had vindictiveness about himself.
Well, that was the 80s.
Yeah.
This is, I mean, the 80s, I would say, once Reagan came in 1980, it was planned genocide.
Yeah.
It's all, I mean, that was all the coke was... Crack, and the whole elimination of liberties for black people in particular. And it was also the beginning of the 80s was a decade of greed.
Sure.
When it was no longer... people used to be ashamed of being greedy until the 80s came.
Yeah.
I mean, people have always been greedy, but it became a fad. You know, it was people were proud to be an asshole, is what I would call it.
Sure.
So it was all right. The corporate raiders were popular in the 80s. So under all this disguise, tell us more about what it was like after going in at 20 years old.
Yeah, I was 20. I had just turned 20 actually, and I had
You
never.
had no education?
Well, no. I wasn't a dumb kid. That's the part that you know that gets me, is that
you look at that person, you call it a dumb kid.
Yeah, that's what it was, because I knew better. And I knew better, and I just wanted to be in the streets. What I didn't share with you is that I'm a second generation of incarcerated male in my family to be serving a life sentence. Oh. 1975, my father too got in trouble for manslaughter. He was sentenced to 15 years to life.
Whoa.
Approximately 10 years later, I was serving 31 years to life.
Ooh.
And we was a time where he and I were both in the prison at the same time, because he didn't get out to 1990.
We hear about stuff like this, but
I've met fathers and sons in prison. I've met fathers and sons in prison. So the one that really suffered in this was my son, of course, and my mother.
Always the mothers. Yeah.
Yeah, my mother and my son, they suffered. My mother, I just had a birthday, and she really did a lot of cooking and stuff like that, so she was happy to have me there and have my friends and my family there. But she really has been through some trauma, and so have I, and I still experience it to today. Some of the things I've gone through while away incarcerated, things that some of them I won't talk about today, but it was difficult.
Well, you have to honor your creator, which is your mother.
Absolutely.
You know?
Well, I call her my queen, so.
Amen. That's what she is.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what keeps you going.
Absolutely. Well, she was there every day for 30 years, 5 months, 25 days. She was there every day, and she made it easier for me. She made it much easier for me to do the time.
Oh, wow.
So.
Is incarceration, or was it in the 80s, a badge of courage?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I didn't make it. I didn't make it until I went to prison.
Can you explain that psychology?
It's a sickness, really.
That's the black psychology,
yeah,
right?
It's sad that our young people glorify that type of person. When I meet young people today, because the work that I do, I engage a lot of young people, and until I tell them that I was away all that time,
They never know.
they would never know, but that's what opens them up. That's what makes me interesting. That's what makes me valid. That's what makes me what they call a credible messenger today.
Okay.
So then they'll listen because of my experiences. And it's unfortunate, but I feel I utilize it to my advantage, you know, to be able to talk to them and share my story with them.
Maybe God just made this your calling. He may took that dumb kid and turned him into a gentleman.
Productive citizen
My
society.
aunt actually gave a testimony before I got locked up that God was going to settle me. And
See?
it was...
You got to listen to the creators. You know, the women know.
I do. So I feel blessed. I'm on top of the world.
There you go.
Did you spend a substantial amount of time in solitary?
I did spend some time in solitary. In the very beginning of my bid, I spent some time because it's very violent inside of prison, for those that may not know. So I was an adolescent, what they called at that time, and I was in a building called C-74.
Rikers Island.
Yeah, Rikers Island, and it was slashings every day, maybe 30, 40 slashings every day. So I would get in trouble because I wasn't going to be a victim. And
So you did the slashing?
sometimes I did, or sometimes I had to just stand up to the people that were doing the slashing.
Okay.
Or the stabbings. I've actually seen people get murdered in prison and Rikers Island.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that, and speaking to what Anthony was about in terms, and more so speaking about being incarcerated, and also at a time when it was considered a badge of a rite of passage, so to speak.
There you go.
Like, and just so twisted how it is that out here in society, people look at you, in admiration because of your positive accomplishments, your educational status, your employment status, or your career status. Whereas when you become incarcerated, your status is defined by how violent of a person you were while you were out in the street. What type of crimes you had committed while you were out in the street, so that when you get there, everybody already knows who you are because of your representation. It precedes you, and it sort of gives you creds. You know what I'm saying? Like nobody don't mess with you.
Right.
Anything that's going on in the prison underground, normally you're incorporated with that, and it gives you a status. So, like for myself, like when I went to prison, when I got to Attica, people already knew who I was. Oh, yo, this is Vic, man, yo, like all of the movers and shakers, you know what I'm saying, were the people that I gravitated to, or even knew who I was, and it was like, don't mess with him. Although I was such a little guy, I was known in the street to be violent and was not to be messed with. So the level of violence that I committed while I was in the street gave me prison creds, and that gave me a status. So anything that was going down, I was always down. Contraband
Did your
and everything
size
else.
make you twice as violent?
Yes, it did. And when I was in the street, and because of the fact that, number one, I was always small,
Right.
I always looked at young, and I was always the one you would look at that you wouldn't suspect.
Baby
And
face.
because of the fact that I knew people would try me,
Right.
I knew I had to come
first.
in
You
a
have to go
violent
first.
manner, just to let you know that I was not playing.
Right.
And I had to always, make the first move, so to speak. Like, I had a little crew, and when we go to do things like, a robbery, whatever, I was always the first one to make the move.
Right,
I
right,
wouldn't wait. And everybody else would follow me. So in that character, like I say, it awarded me cred. So when I got to prison, everybody basically already knew who I was. And it was like, people would look, they always
Watch
looking
the
for a
little guy.
victim. But when they seen me, it was like,
Watch the little guy.
don't mess with him.
So you were like Little Seymour in Cotton Comes to Harlem. Little Seymour and Big Percy.
Yeah.
It's interesting, that manipulation that you spoke of, and the sight game that's played in the street. I was counseling a young boy a few years back, and a little guy. And I asked him, I said, you remember the movie Brothers? He says, yeah. So I said, if you don't check yourself, you're going to wind up like the gangster in the movie who wound up under the ice. I said,
Oh, yeah,
check
yeah,
yourself.
yeah, yeah.
I say, you are looking to get your boys to do a guy in because you can't do it yourself. Okay, you're not bad enough to do it yourself. He was real flyweight. I said, just cool out. You know, his father had passed. He was angry. I said, look, my father died when I was even younger than he was. I said, but that's no reason to dishonor your father's memory. A month later, he was dead. You know, and that was about 8 or 9 years ago, and things have changed. You know, and we want our kids to really understand that we're all here for a positive purpose.
Right.
Not for the craziness. We're here for the positive purpose.
Address how we change the kids today. Now, you and I go back to a different era. When he went in, it was 80s. We knew what the 80s were like. The 90s were different, but you came out in the 21st century. Wow,
Yeah.
what was that like?
You mind if I back up a little bit and tell you a little bit more
Of course.
about myself? When I was incarcerated, as you can probably imagine, I thought my life was over.
Right, okay.
People used to say, you got to the sunburn out. And I used to think about that. Wow, 31 in life. I hadn't lived 31 years, so I didn't know what that was even like. So it came a point in my life, and during my incarceration, I was just running around the prisons and not doing anything with my life. Then one day I decided that I didn't want to be this way anymore. I didn't want to die the man that I was. Right. And I began to think about what I wanted my life to be like. I developed a vision for myself.
Okay.
So I didn't have any education when I came in because I didn't want to go to school. I went to 3 different high schools, and I decided I was going to go there and be fly and be cool. But when I finally decided that I wanted to apply myself, I got my GED. I went on from there and got an associate's degree. I got a bachelor's degree and a master's degree.
Oh, amen, brother.
All right.
And
That was a time when you could get an education.
yes. Well, you still can now. People not really aware. They don't allow you to have the tap and the Pell Grants, because when Bataki came in, he snatched that in '95.
Ah, Tacky did that.
Yeah, of course. And he built all those special housing units, which Mr. Pate always talks about, solitary confinement. He built so many around the state. They were double bunk solitary confinement boxes. But a long story short, what they have now in the prisons were probably funded programs. People like, believe it or not, Warren Buffett is a big donor to...
Really? Oh, that's great
He's
to
a
hear.
big
That's
donor
great.
to Harry Belafonte, Warren Buffett,
God.
Ozzie Davis before he passed, Ice-T, Coco. They donate monies to Hudson Link Mercy College, which is a privately funded nonprofit organization.
beautiful.
Ran by former prisoners, by the way. And they give us the monies, the support that we need to go to prison. They pay the teachers at Mercy College. Or actually, I'm not even sure if they even get paid, but they come in at nighttime to Sing Sing Correctional Facility, and they have classes. And we participate. And
You in Sing Sing?
I was in Sing Sing. My last 15 years was in Sing Sing. My first 15 years was all over the state. My last 15 was in 7 months was in Sing Sing. I wound up going to Fishkill, making the parole board, fortunately making the parole board, and being released from Queensboro. I had a high-profile case. I had the commissioner or chairperson of parole on my hearing. Her name is Tina Stanford, and I met actually when me and Mr. Pate went to Albany. I met is it Curtis or Lewis Cruz?
Curtis.
Oh, Curtis Cruz.
Yeah.
I met the commissioner that actually was on my parole board. He saw me doing the advocacy work that I was doing with Mr. Pate, and he was very excited about the work I was doing. And I told him, man, you gave me a chance, and I won't let you down.
Fabulous, fabulous.
That's
I'm glad
great.
you're on the show to show that everybody can turn themselves around.
How was
God played
Queens?
an important role in this?
Say it
I
again.
said God played an important role in it?
Traditionally, I'm not a religious person, but I'm a spiritual person. I definitely believe in a creator, a God, whatever you want to call him or her. And yes, no question about it. I believe that I was spared by God, my creator. For
God's within you.
that. No question about that.
Okay.
And I'm just trying to let it out.
Organized religion is not a favor of anybody's today.
Right, right.
We got
How
so
was
many church
Queensboro?
pimps out there.
Queensboro was a bunch of kids, basically. A lot of
Explain to the people, Van Damme, you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes,
All right.
yes.
I've done some stuff over there too.
Queensboro is a release facility. You have a date to go home, so
Okay.
everybody there is going home within the next 90 days.
Okay.
Actually, somebody goes home every day, you know,
Okay.
from out of Queensboro. 10, 20 people may go home every day. And it's a pretty relaxed facility. It's a dormitory. I mean, things still happen there, unfortunately, because kids are stupid. They're on their way back before they leave. You know, they haven't made up their mind yet what they want to do with their lives. And they still do stupid stuff, you know. So.
I worked a case out of there years ago, unfortunately. But it was a guy that we had arrested, convicted, he was sentenced. And we had the same crime pattern reappear a few years later. And we're like, it's funny, it's like television. That sounds like Smokey Joe, you know. And this is what we do. We call in and out. You got Smokey Joe upstate? No, where is he? And they run it. He's in Queensboro. So we go to Queensboro the next morning, and we're laying, and the men are coming out, and we spot them. We follow Smokey Joe from Long Island City to Midtown Manhattan, to Lower Manhattan, back to 14th Street, on the L train to Brooklyn. He robs a woman on Greenpoint Avenue and runs into the tunnel. So we took care of the lady. We said, don't worry, we know who that is. The next morning we go back. We wait for him, he comes out. Hey, Smokey Joe. Hey, Spoon. Hey, Don, how you doing? Hey, now listen, when you got back? Yeah, we get work release and blah, blah, blah. Fine. Long story short, well, we want to talk to you about the lady you robbed at Greenpoint Avenue yesterday. And he just dropped his head. Get in the car.
Go rest yourself.
He said, you were there? Yeah, we were there. We were here yesterday when you came out the door. But he had talked about, and this is another thing, I don't know, that was a number of years back, over 25 years ago. And this is one reality. He said that there was a lot of drugs moving through that facility. And between the correction officers and the guys going in and out every day, he said it was a drug mill. And he was still on drugs at the time, using drugs in the facilities that he was in, you know. And like you said, your mind, you know, you change your method of thinking. And this is where the correction comes. It has to start in our mind, and then our body follows in the process. Unfortunately, we had to send him back upstate, you know. But you said off camera before we came on, the Department of Correction does not
rehabilitate or correct, as far as I'm concerned. A lot of times you look at them and you wonder, well, why am I in jail and they controlling me? Because they're just as bad as I am. Some of the things that you see them do. So even the way they, you know, you can treat your families, or you know, they treat me one way, that's fine, okay? I committed a crime, even though that's not my punishment. My punishment, my sentence. But they treat, you know, your families a certain way, which is really uncalled for.
How do they treat the family?
Well, just to discourage them, you know, the process of visiting, there's things that you have to go through. I understand that there's, you know, care, custody, and control. You have to secure the facility, but some of the things are just uncalled for that they do too. My mother's been through things that I had to actually complain about or write grievances about and complain, you know, that it's not fair.
They just do it to piss you off?
They do it to discourage you from getting visits or your people from coming to see you, so that they can break you even, you know, they can break you without you. You don't get visits. That's the point where you just come to, you say, I don't care anymore. If you don't have family or loved ones, someone coming to see you that cares about you, it's sort of painful, you know, not having visits and be able to have somebody to love on, you know, and my mother was there the whole time, so.
Well, the prison guards are in prison themselves. I mean, what kind of life do they live? I mean, they're caged in for, I mean, they get to go home after 8, 10 hours or whatever, but they are under that energy, that negativity, that everybody else, that collective energy.
That's true, but that's by choice, first and foremost.
But sometimes, don't they get carried away with it sometimes?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I think a lot of times what it is you have officers that maybe, because they're from our neighborhoods, so, you know, you have officers that maybe, they remember you or someone like you that was, you know, a tough guy in the street that may have took advantage of them.
Okay.
So now they have the upper hand. Or you may have a female officer that maybe God didn't do her right, and now she has the upper hand on a guy that you remind her of. And now she's going to take it out on you.
Yeah.
That happens a lot, you know.
I found out, yeah. I found
That
out
happens
just
a lot.
to make reference to that.
Because there's a different
especially-
world there,
yeah.
right?
Yes.
Especially with the females, to me, they seem like they was like extra mean.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, unnecessarily. I'm not all of them, you know, I don't want
Right,
to
exactly.
stereotype them all, but it just seemed like some of the females were like extra mean. And being in a position of authority and power and control over men, it's like they acted out their fantasies.
Hundreds of
You know
men
what
at
I'm
one
saying? To
time.
be in charge
Yeah,
of men.
Hundreds.
To tell you when, where, how, you know what I'm saying? Get you beat down, you know what I'm saying? On a whim, just because they said you might have said something to them that was out of the way, and necessarily that doesn't necessarily have to be the case.
Well, you just
She's
might
calling.
remind them of somebody that did wrong to them. All right, let's go to a roll in. We'll be right back at you. Run the second one, not Nan, but Khalif Brother's mother. And we'll be right back at you.
When he came out, he was not the same. There was too much baggage he brought from Rikers with him. The memory of beatings, starvation. There was times when he wasn't even allowed to take a shower for 2 weeks. He was angry. He started getting real paranoid. And his life just spiraled from that. My name is Venita Browder, and I'm the mother of Khalif Browder. Khalif was on his way home. A police car stopped, and I'm assuming the guy who made the complaint was in the car and told the police that Khalif had robbed him of a backpack. Khalif kept saying, I don't know this guy, I didn't rob him. He was told that they were gonna just go to the precinct to kind of sort things out. Well, that sorting out took 3 years. We went to court, we had a legal aid. And the legal aid told me from the beginning that it was a BS case. He said, don't worry about it, it's a BS case. But meanwhile, my son is being held at Rikers. He would tell me things when I would visit him about being beat. He told me, Ma, I gotta fight. If I don't, they're gonna think I'm soft. I gotta fight. All it did for Khalif was get him in more trouble and more days in solitary. Imagine being locked up 23 hours a day. This is your life. 4 walls, that's it. He couldn't take it. They told him, we're gonna break you. That's what they told my baby, that they're gonna break him. And in reality, they did. At first, you could see he was relieved, that he was home, he could do what he wanted. He started Bronx Community, and He was doing okay, but then, I mean, he was really out of it, and he couldn't keep it up. He quit. He felt that everybody was out to get him. Everybody was a police plant. He stopped speaking to friends. He would get real angry. And then there were times where he would just, this look would come over him, and he would just like stare. It was a Saturday morning. It was just me and Khalif. And I hear him upstairs doing all this moving around. And I'm like, well, maybe Khalif is positioning the furniture to get comfortable. I didn't pay attention because when Khalif is upset, he paces. Then all of a sudden I heard this boom. I run upstairs. I didn't see anything. I ran into the next room, and the air conditioning cover was kicked out, and I just saw something hanging. I ran back downstairs, and as I opened the backyard door, Khalif was hanging there. I miss my son. I miss him so much.
That's riveting. You can all feel the pain of a mother losing a child, but what a way to lose a child. After going through all that pain, and he gets out and just can't handle it. Out of the 1,000 days he spent in prison, 800 of them were in solitary confinement. And they call that rehabbing, and it's actual torture.
Mm-hmm.
And Victor,
Yeah.
you have a bill still in Albany?
Yes, we do. Currently, we have made some real progress, some progress to the point that we almost have it at the Assembly's door waiting for passage. We are currently in the Ways and Means Committee, looking hopefully within the next couple of weeks to get passed out of that committee. We have some significant sponsorship in the Assembly, and we also have some Assembly members that have committed to voting for it once it gets to the Assembly. The Assembly Speaker, Heastie, is a supporter also, and the indication is that once it gets out of the Ways and Means Committee, the next step is the Assembly, and that it will be brought to the floor for a vote. However, that will only be half of the job that needs to be done, because you know that a bill, in order for it to become law, has to be passed in both houses, Senate and Assembly. And unfortunately, as everybody knows, the Senate is dominated by the Republicans. However, because of the amount of support we have gotten from our legislators and continuing support, we are now just so close to the point that we are looking forward to it to getting passed in the Assembly, and it was actually included in the Assembly's criminal justice package as part of the bills to be passed. Unfortunately, it was also in the budget, and Governor Cuomo took out all of the criminal justice components of the budget, which basically means that it's now going to be considered a standalone bill. Still, we are optimistically hopeful that it will be passed in the Assembly. Then we will focus our attention on the Senate, which it possibly could flip because of upcoming special elections, would possibly mean that there can be a Democratic-controlled Senate. And if that happens, because of the amount of support that we already have from some Senate legislators, we're looking to get more. So I'll say that we are in a good position, we're in a good space, in a good place, and we're continuously moving forward. Thankfully, I met Brother Anthony, who is now one of our esteemed speakers, because we have a speakers bureau specifically designed to speak and go out and talk about and promote solitary confinement So he is one of our esteemed speakers that go out to the community and inform and educate the community on solitary confinement, its bill, the legislation we have pending, and as a solitary confinement survivor himself, is doing an excellent job. So I thank you for being a part of that.
Well, tell us about some of your works that you've been doing since you've been out of prison. I see working with Victor is an excellent start.
It was a blessing, actually.
Amen.
I'll be honest with you, the man has been a blessing to me and a mentor as well.
Good.
And when I went down to National Action Network, actually on January 20th, I became a member 6 days before, or actually the day that Trump was inaugurated. The day Mr. Sharpton said, who's going to become a member?
You were influenced, right?
Yeah, absolutely, because I heard him for years I heard, Reverend Sharpton talk about, come on down, who's going to join NAN? On the radio, I would listen to him when I was upstate. And it was surreal, but it was a pleasure to get up there and go down the aisle and join the National Action Network. And then Alvin Ponder, I told him my story real quick. He took me back around to meet Reverend Sharpton again. And then he told me, he said, man, make sure you take care of him. I want him on my second chance committee. And from there, Mr. Ponder introduced me to Mr. Pate, and the rest is history. We've been doing some great work together.
Great.
And under his tutelage, I'm ready to, help him to get this bill passed.
We got a convention coming up next Wednesday.
18th to 21st.
All right. So I want to run this piece to give everybody an idea of my pastor. This is my Saturday church.
Yeah,
I've been there 20 years, and I get a good word every Saturday.
That's right.
And I tithe every week.
Every week.
That's right, that's right.
And you get a shout out from the rev.
So, come on, we're going to show the disciple of Martin Luther King. All right? Give a shout out to Reverend Sharpton. And run the piece, please.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed, that all men are created equal.
Dr. King's dream has not yet been realized, nor will it be unless we have people like Al Sharpton who continue to hammer away at injustices.
He, along with the National Action Network, have been laboring in the vineyards of the community for a very, very long time.
The groundbreaking things that he's doing is not for fame, is not for glory, it's for right.
Reverend Sharpton, I want to commend you for the National Action Network's commitment to fight injustice and inequality here in New York City and across America.
As someone more eloquently than I said, all you need do for evil to triumph is for good people to be silent.
This is only the beginning. There's not going to be a next time, because we're not going to let you get away with this.
He's bringing up issues that other people are not talking about.
When a National Action Network get involved in an issue, the likelihood that justice will prevail dramatically increases.
Al Sharpton wants to take the streets back from gun-toting thugs who murdered innocent people this summer, including 4-year-old Lloyd Morgan.
While we're arguing about people's rights to bear arms, while we're arguing about who does the best job against crime, our babies are dying in the middle of a political crossfire. No justice!
I'm not accepting this because I know it doesn't have to be like this, and I won't accept it.
His decisions to champion social justice are not a function of geography, ethnicity, color, but are really a function of what I would call his moral standing as to how he views the world.
And as we now see the maneuvers to undermine the Voting Rights Act, it started again in Florida. Yeah, it did. Which is why we're gearing up all over this state to protect the democratic process.
Our independence was declared a long time ago, and we're still trying to get it right.
Voting rights is under assault. Literally 5 million people, according to the Brennan Institute, may be disenfranchised.
Reverend Al, this is just scandalous what is going on in Ohio.
If we go the way we are today, 197,000 Ohioans will be refused the right to vote.
I mean, how do we even think we can justify this?
It is the height of hypocrisy. There is no justification for it.
Because we've come such a long way, there might be a belief that we've arrived, and that's so far from the truth.
There is an all-out assault on us, people of color, women, elderly community, the disabled community. If we allow our rights, our voting rights, to be taken away, the next thing will be another right, and we will continue to lose our rights until we have no rights.
The pain cut too deep. We suffered too much to go part of the way on the journey. We cannot stop.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. While these truths may be self-evident, they've never been self-executing.
You know, community can come together as a family and stand up for each other. Sometimes you don't realize what you have until it's time to use it.
The voice for the voiceless. He has stood strong against the waves of hatred and bigotry.
With over 60 chapters nationwide, a host of dedicated volunteers, and thousands of members who are spread out all across the nation, we work tirelessly to balance the scales of fairness and equality.
If you do what civil rights groups like the National Action Network have always done, if you put your shoulder to the wheel of history, then we can move this country towards the promise of a better day, to lift up not only the African American community, but the broader American family. But we've still got more work to do.
And so the mission has been successful, but it's still incomplete. Because until we can legitimately say that every single American has a fair shot at the American dream, then there's still tremendous work to be done.
I truly understand now what Dr. King, Malcolm X, et cetera, I knew what they was fighting for.
150 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, we ask that where our paths seem blanketed by thorns of oppression, we ask for your guidance toward the light of deliverance.
We're the children of dreamers that look biting dogs and fire hoses in the face and defy death, singing, "We shall overcome."
The road is hard and it's long, but, you know, we built for it.
There's no limits for me. The sky is the limit.
We're the children of the dreamers that saw us here when we couldn't see ourselves. We gonna march together because we just begun to fight.
Yeah. Now, that's my church, Reverend Sharpton. But this is 5 years old, mind you. This is 2013. But next Wednesday, starting on the 18th, we'll have a convention at the Sheraton Hotel. You can call, I should have put the numbers up there, 877-626-2651. That's 877-626-4651. Call and make your reservation. It's free at the Sheraton.
Eric Holder will be speaking,
Eric
correct?
Holder, we've got a lot of
Former
stars
Attorney General.
there.
Yes.
And Victor Pate is part of what's the name of your panel?
I'm going to be on a panel that's called Mayor's Panel for Reentry, where former Governor McGreevey is going to be the moderator for 4 mayors from New Jersey, and myself and a few other people that work on reentry issues for people formerly incarcerated. And just quickly, before I forget, because they'll get me if I don't mention this here, and just really is like a good segue, because you're talking about civil rights, voting rights, things of that nature. They're things that many people suffered and died for.
Right.
And I just like, you know, for our audience to sort of like be tuned into this. And it's one of the things that, you know, it's part of the disenfranchisement process, but how it has been extended in all arenas for people that have been criminally justice involved.
That's right.
There's a disenfranchisement process. But more particularly, I'm speaking to voting rights for people that have been in prison and are now home and that are currently on parole.
You're talking about Anthony.
Yeah, and we are engaging in a new campaign that the National Action Network has is one of the spearheads, along with about 16 other criminal justice reform organizations. It's called Restore the Voting Rights New York, and specifically, it is designed to restore voting rights to people that are on parole in New York. Currently, New York's law does not allow you to vote if you are on parole. If you're on probation, you can vote, but you're barred from voting while you're on parole. So we now have a new campaign to restore voting rights for people that are on parole. We have an Assembly sponsor of the bill, who is Danny O'Donnell, and we have a Senate sponsor, who is Leroy Comrie. And we are actively recruiting people, formerly incarcerated people, family members of people incarcerated, concerned community citizens, because if we're talking about rehabilitation, if we're talking about second chances, if we're talking about restorative justice, why do we stop at voting rights?
Right, okay.
So what we're saying as part of the campaign, that's part of the restorativeness of a person that has been in prison, has reformed themselves, right, and is out in society. If they have been deemed eligible to return to society, then just as well as they are deemed eligible to return to society, then their rights should be returned to them.
Amen.
Because that is part of the restorative justice, that is part of second chance, and it is part of allowing a person to fully reintegrate back into the community by being able to participate in civic engagement. Voting rights is part of civic engagement. Voting rights is part of your constitutional rights. So if you have been to prison, done your time, and are now back in society, but although you're on parole, then your rights should also be returned to you. And as a person that is currently on parole, why are you being denied the right to vote? Well, we're in the process of getting that change.
Well,
and we're doing the
I'm
restorative
excited
vote.
to hear how you've affected Anthony. I mean, Anthony's a classic example of your good work. All right. Well, come on, Anthony. Come on.
Well, again, I mean, this is why I'm working with him, because I want to be an advocate for myself as well.
Okay.
You know, as well as others that are still left behind.
Yeah, right.
There's so many men that are fighting to get out of prison that deserve a chance, as far as I'm concerned. That were in prison before me.
Right.
I have a friend, his name is Larry Johnson, and he's been in prison 36 years.
36.
And he just got 18 more months. So by the time he goes back to the board, it'd be a total of nearly 38 years. And his crime is no different than mine. And it's just sad to see men being warehoused.
Not for murder, but for...
Actually, unfortunately, this was a murder as well. But he was sentenced to 25 years. Why is he doing 38?
Okay.
That's the question, you know.
Was something he did in prison?
No, he didn't do anything in prison. He's been productive while in prison. You know?
Well, why did it stretch to 38?
Well, it's a way to keep people employed.
Whoa.
The longer you keep men in prison, the longer people will have jobs and opportunities in these rural neighborhoods way upstate where the prison sustains the community.
Okay.
Otherwise, it'd just be farms.
So white supremacy is stretching into the...
For a long time.
For a long time.
See, that's where even where the vote is concerned, what you were talking about.
Yeah, because they get the power of...
They got these
upstate.
census. They count us toward their census.
The population.
They use us as
federal
part of the
dollars, and
population
you're getting
to get the money.
nothing out of that federal
Explain
money.
that. Break it down for me.
Go ahead. You know it better. Y'all know it better than me.
So when you're incarcerated, you know, of course, you're no longer in the community or no longer in the local area that you came from. And while you're in prison, and part of the prison centers of the town in which you are a current resident, you are counted as a resident of that county, which in turn allows that county to be eligible for federal dollars, state dollars, city dollars, whatever type of dollars that may be going around based upon that locale census. So because you have such a large amount of people that are being held in these prisons and jails that are in these upstate rural counties, you're being counted as a resident of that county because you are currently a prisoner in
so
that
the
county.
that Sing
And they
Sing is
benefit.
in, the county of Sing Sing
And they
is
benefit.
in, it might have 100,000 people in that county, and
In
another
addition to the
200,000.
prisoners.
Right.
In addition to the
A
prisoners.
few
So
thousand
they
more.
counted as 300 people, 300,000
Well, it
people.
won't be 100,000, but you
It's
say
probably
50.
more than that.
No, that's not going to be more than that. The prison holds 2,300, 1,700 people.
Okay.
But still, it adds on. And we're not a part of the census because we're in prison. We don't benefit from that.
How many people are in the largest prison? And
Attica is probably one of the larger prisons, and in Clinton, Dannemora, it's like 2,300 people there.
is that all? I thought it was
Yeah.
much more than that.
Nah, not here. In California, they have these big, large prison systems, 100,000 people.
Okay.
But not here.
If the federal government per capita is giving $100 per person.
Exactly.
And the population of that county is 5,000 people. And the prison has 2,000 people. You're increasing your population by almost 50%.
That's right, almost half.
So when you take 2,000 times 100, that money is coming back to those people who are living outside of the prison. None of that money goes to the people inside the prison. So they could take that money, use it for education, paving the roads or whatever it is, and the inmates get nothing. Ergo, when you come back to the community now on parole, if you could be utilized in the census for money, you should be able to be utilized for the vote.
That's right.
Coming back home. That benefit should come back to your community.
Absolutely.
Because the community is also benefiting when you're voting and taking part in the process.
What are some of the other things that you're doing, Anthony?
I just want to backtrack a little bit. When I was away after getting my education, I decided that education without application means anything. So I began to work with a program called, as you may remember, it's called Scared Straight.
Oh, yes.
For the kids.
Yeah, we call it Youth Awareness Program. So,
For the young adults.
Yeah, and we would not try to scare them. Because I went through a program like that myself when I was younger. And you may be scared for a moment, but you're not even scared because you know they can't really do nothing to you. You know you're going to leave.
But you're getting a rep by being in prison anyway.
Why? I'm sorry.
I'm saying you're getting a reputation.
You know what I mean by that is when I went through the program myself as a child, as a kid, myself, scared straight.
Right.
You know you couldn't do nothing to me, so I knew I was leaving, so the program wasn't effective in that sense. But what we do now, we educate people.
Okay.
In hopes of them making better choices with their lives than we made with our own.
So you give yourself...
So I share my story.
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about when I speak to these young people because it's like I'm talking to myself 30 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, and so sometimes I get emotional and they would really open up and say, wow, man, we didn't know nobody cared.
Right.
And I think that's a big problem in our community as well. Our young people, from what I see, they don't like us. They don't like old heads, they call them. You know, they don't trust us, and they felt like we let them down in some way or another.
How's that?
Well, I mean, when you think about the crack era, those babies were left to themselves. You know, and then they had babies, so they didn't know what they were doing, and now these kids are growing up today, you know, with no sense of direction and a sense of hopelessness.
You talked about the trip your mother would make.
Yeah, my mother would, when I first started my incarceration, my father started incarceration, she would travel from Far Rockaway, Queens to 59th Street and then take a 8-9 hour ride upstate one way and then have to ride 8-9 hours back the other way. So it would be a 24-hour.
9 hours?
What time did she have to leave the house to get to 59th Street to
On
get
time
the bus?
to get the bus. You would say 2, 3 in the morning. She would get to 59th Street, wait out there in the cold or the summer heat with a bunch of other women, by the way. These are women that make these treks upstate and wherever else you go. And the visitor rooms are full with women. And it would be a 24-hour day for my mother. And she did that. I was incarcerated for 30 years, 5 months, 25 days. But let's not forget my father came upstate in 1975. So she did it for 41 years.
Whew.
Do the women get the visits in terms of people coming to visit them? Because the female population has increased.
I was going to say that.
Substantially over the years.
Unfortunately, the fastest growing prison population are females, black females. And sadly, they don't get the visits that men get they're sort of forgotten about. If their mothers or their grandmothers or their children don't come to see them, the visitor rooms are very sparse, and not too many people up there seeing them, so they don't get the support that they need.
So the men are not getting up early in the morning to go see the ladies.
They're not getting up at all, not even early in the morning. They're just not getting up. That's unfortunate. I won't say all men. Of course, you're going to have some men, but I mean, the majority, they don't do that.
Yeah, in comparison to the male facilities.
You might as well say, you know, majority.
And I've heard this story numerous times from a few females that are part of a female group of women that are formerly incarcerated, and then one of the issues that they all bring out, and they talk about how, you know, in the females' facilities, like the visiting rooms are just almost bare, and devoid of the men in comparison to the male facilities, when it's, you know, almost packed to the brim with females with children and stuff like that there. Right. So unfortunately, men are not supporting these women that are in these prisons and jails, and it's a sad case where a lot of time, a lot of these women were in jail because of these men.
Right.
I'm glad you hit that.
They're not going to visit them. You know what I'm saying? And that's a sad situation. And like Brother Anthony pointed out, it's people of color. You know, and you got these women that's doing, I mean, large sums of time, and they hardly get any visits, if any visits at all.
How do we change this badge of courage to go to prison? Why do we make that? Why do the kids still take so much pride in saying, I've been to Rikers? You know, how do you turn that around?
Well, you have to turn the mindset around that it's cool to be a gangster or it's cool to be tough. Because to me, I always tell...
But that's all in the music and everything else. Yeah, that's part of the planned genocide.
But I always told young people, because not only did I work with the Youth Awareness Program, working with young people coming inside the prison, I work with my peers as well. And I dealt with gangs inside the prison.
Okay, all right.
So,
all right.
They looked up to me too, in the sense that I was a gangster. I did the time. I had time, and I had lived a certain lifestyle when I was out there. And we talked about the totem pole of people that commit crimes in prison. As Victor knows, top of the totem pole is a murderer, someone that commits murder. Someone that commits rape is at the low part of the totem pole, or abuse of a child. You know, so I was at the top of the totem pole. I was well known. Fu Quan, that was my name. I was a 5%er back in the days from Far Rockaway. So I made, like Victor said, I made a name before I even came to prison. So I was sort of respected once I got there already. Red carpet was rolled out for me. And then I began to make a name for myself in prison. Unfortunately, I wanted everybody to know I had a lot of time to do. I'm not the one to be messed with, so I did things that to let people know I wasn't to be messed with. But what I say to change their attitude is to let them know, man, that's not cool. Like, real gangsters take care of their families. You know, that's a gangster to me.
There you go.
You know, and that's what I'm out here trying to do. And I've been afforded the opportunity because I had a vision for myself before I came out of prison. This is way before I went to a parole board. I got my master's degree in 2007.
Amen.
I had 10 years, a decade still left. So I had to figure out what I was going to do. So what I began to do is just give up myself. I became a servant. And, you know, Jesus, they said, was the best servant there was.
Servant leadership.
Exactly, servant leadership. So I began to do that, and I forgot about my time, I forgot about myself, and I began to help other young black males that were around me. I began to help anybody, but just particularly with black males around me. And I wanted to do that work, and I began doing that work. I became passionate about it, and I began to develop a vision of myself, what I was going to do when I came out. Because that was the biggest piece for me, to be able to develop that vision, so I can walk out of this situation and have something to go to. And that vision is still coming together now. It came together with my housing, it came together with my employment, it came together with meeting Mr. Pate over here, with meeting you gentlemen, and I'm just excited about the opportunities that I have. I work now in Manhattan, East Harlem, a brand new program started by Mr. Cy Vance Jr. I'm so thankful to him, the Manhattan District Attorney. He started a program called Community Navigators. It's a criminal justice investment initiative to you know, to lower crime and to help young people, particularly inside of East Harlem residents, to get connected to services.
Give me a second. We'll say goodbye to our Manhattan audience, and we'll be back in a minute. You know, it's all mental, and, you know, keep with the God that lies within. The God in me loves the God in you. Stay tuned for more of the Gilchrist Experience. It's all mental. Remember, it's all in your mind. You have to change that for good. Love instead of hate, especially against each other. Amen. Power to the people. Come back. We've got another minute.
Yeah, it's just a great opportunity, and I'm thankful they have a criminal justice. The irony is that the job that I'm working with is a criminal justice investment initiative. You know, how ironic is that someone that's just coming out of prison, this is my first job. I worked when I was younger, not really in any menial jobs, but now I have an opportunity to help East Harlem residents. And just to give you a snapshot of my life, I just paid taxes for the first time, and I'm 52 years old. So, I mean, that's just crazy within itself.
How does it feel?
It feels great, because I got back a nice return.
That's good. All right.
I got back a nice return, so I'm happy about that. But you know what? But you know the funny thing about it is, they didn't know, they still don't know who I am. I have to prove who I am. So I have to go down to IRS
when your number comes up
in order to get my money.
Power to the people. God bless.
Yeah.